Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Regina, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing how I've taught my 4-year-old to read in less than a month. She has gone from knowing some of the sounds, but not all of them, to blending words, reading sentences, and even entire phonics readers in under 4 weeks. Yes, I'm not playing, y'all. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I know a lot of us out here in the homeschool community, teaching kids to read can be a little bit scary, but I want you to know it is possible. You can do it and your child can learn to read. All right, so just so y'all know, I'm still a little new to this YouTube game, so I may be looking down at my notes, so forgive me if that happens, but I don't want to miss anything important. So the first thing, before we even, before we get into the content, I want to make sure that we understand a little bit about reading and how that works, how kids learn to read. Now, you may have heard about, the science of reading or even the reading wars, how there's kind of 2 different schools of thought on how kids learn to read. One of those schools of thought is that kids learn to read mostly by phonics. And that essentially means that you teach children that letters make sounds and those sounds make up words. And so they learn to read by knowing the letter sounds and using that to figure out what the words mean. So that's phonics. The other school of thought is called whole language or whole word. And in that school of thought for reading, it's postulated that kids learn to read by memorizing certain words. They have those in memory, and then by also using other clues like pictures and things like that to figure out what a text is trying to say. Well, there has been tons and tons and tons and tons of research, and hands down winner is phonics. The main way that kids learn how to be strong readers is through direct, systematic phonics instruction. So I recommend that's the way you go as well. Now, to keep moving forward, let's go ahead and just get into the steps, how I'm actually teaching her to read. So the first step, now, don't roll your eyes, but the first step is read to your child. Read to them all the time. And the reason why I said don't roll your eyes, because I know you've heard this. They've probably been saying this to you since before your child was born. And you've probably been reading to your child since before they were born. So great, keep doing that. The reason why it's so important, of course, is because when kids are really, really young, so even if you're watching this video and maybe your child is really young, then language development is actually brain development. That actually sets the tone for the development of the brain, so it learns all other things like math and things like that. So that's one reason that reading to your child is so important. But also, it helps them to correlate that print, the print that they see in books actually corresponds with sounds and actually corresponds with words. Because reading is not a natural process. Like speaking, walking, your kids most likely are going to learn how to do that. You don't have to teach them how to say things. You don't have to teach them how to walk. But reading is actually something that needs to be taught, and kids, your brain has to actually be taught and wired to do that thing. So reading to them is one way to kind of start that process of them making those connections. And it's also really great for vocabulary. Strong readers are readers that have good comprehension. And so once students have phonics down, then they also need to have a really strong vocabulary in order to make sense of what they've been reading. So reading to them does that too. So if you're not reading to your child regularly, start, please. That's gonna help. Now, the second step is to teach your kids the letter sounds. Now, most parents, or a lot of parents, I guess I can't really say most, I haven't asked them, but a lot of parents teach their children the alphabet, right? A, B, we teach them the songs so they know the letter names, and then eventually they start correlating those letter names to what they look like in print. Well, take that one step further, right? Teach them the sounds. So, if your child is old enough to where you're looking at letters and they're identifying them, identify the sounds as well, especially the consonants and the short vowels. Those are the ones that they need to know first. So teach your children the letters and the sounds. Now, the way I do that, way I did that with my daughter was I recently, left my full-time job to homeschool my children. And so she's the youngest. She's the only one I'm getting to teach to read. And the way I did it is that I realized which one she knew and which one she didn't by just holding up an alphabet chart and asking, what sound it was. And so in order to teach her, I actually bought some phonics flashcards on Amazon. They were $2.99, but of course you can make flashcards by just buying some index cards and writing, the letters on them. I'll show you the ones that I bought. So I bought these. They're by Carson DeLosa. They were $2.99, and I like them because they have a little picture with them. And even though so far I've only taught her the consonants, the short vowel sounds, and then a couple of digraphs like CH, ch, and SH, but that's pretty much it that she's learned so far. This deck of flashcards actually has lots of other digraphs like that, but it also has some blends too, like GR for gruh, when she starts learning those for practice. So we would just go through these flashcards every day. We do it about 3 times a day at different times. It took about a week for her to have them down, but she already knew most of them. So I wasn't starting right from scratch. So for your kid, it may take a little bit longer. I do recommend like maybe you do it once, in the morning, once maybe after lunch, and in the evening, because you don't want them to like hate reading. So, but just going through the flashcards, and I just would hold it up, and we'd say it together, nest, and go through that. And we just go through them really quickly. It takes about 2 minutes. Once they start knowing them. In the beginning, it'll take a little longer because they have to repeat after you. Now, an important thing when you're teaching them the sounds is making sure that you're teaching them correctly. I remember I used to be a teacher. I left the classroom about 10 years ago and moved into the private sector. But when I was a teacher, I actually remember going to a training about teaching kids, the letter sounds, and they taught us the specific way to say them. And because people will say things like, when you get to the sound, duh, they might say, duh, and then if you teach kids that, then when they're blending, it's a lot harder for them to blend it. It's like, duh, id, when they have this extra sound in there. So there are some videos on YouTube that you can watch that teach you how to say the sounds correctly. I'll link one below in the comments. If I can find one of the ones that I like, I'll link that below, but just watch that and make sure that you're pronouncing the sounds in the way that's going to make it easiest for your kids to learn to read. Because obviously you know the letter sounds, but there are certain ways to teach them to kids that'll make it easier for them to blend words. So I'll put the link to these cards on Amazon down in the comments below as well. But they were really helpful, and they're laminated so they'll last. But like I said, of course you can just make your own. So once your child knows those sounds, then the next step is once they know those sounds, like just the consonants and the short vowels, once they know that, they are ready to start blending words. Really, they are. And to do that, I recommend starting some type of reading program. That's when you want to purchase something. And the reason why is because it's hard to know. Like obviously, once they know the sounds, you can write words and have them blend words, but you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that they're progressing, if that makes sense. And it's a lot easier to do that if you have something that gives you steps, right? So there's several out there. I'm sure if you came across this video, you probably saw a few others as well. So definitely recommend, do some research, find some that you are considering. The one that I use is Hooked on Phonics. I'm sure you've heard of it. That's the reason why I looked into it, because I just randomly heard of it, like from life. And so I purchased the kindergarten set. And the reason why I purchased kindergarten, they do have like a pre-K. And from what I've seen, the pre-K one, or preschool, whatever it's called, the level before levels 1 and 2, kindergarten starts at level 3 and there's a level 4. I bought both of those. The pre-K focuses on the letter sounds and teaching the kids those. And so, of course, you can start there and just get the Hooked on Phonics, start at the beginning, teach them the sounds and go through that. But because my daughter already knew most of them, I figured I could save a little money and not have to go through that whole program to just teach her the letter sounds, and she already knew most of them. So we just did the flashcards. But I think any kid, you can just use some flashcards or even write the letters on a poster board and just practice them until they know the sounds. And then just start at the kindergarten level. But that's completely up to you. So we use the kindergarten level of Hooked on Phonics. I only bought the kindergarten level. It's a bundle. It has a box like this, and then there's another one for level 4, because 3 and 4 together make kindergarten. And the reason why I only bought kindergarten was just because with my other 2 children, the way that they learn to read, like I said, my son went from not reading to just reading, and he could read anything. You just progress so quickly. And my daughter picked up reading in kindergarten, but it's like once she got it, she got it. So she didn't really need further phonics instruction. And so I didn't want to buy, because I think it goes up to second grade, and I didn't want to buy kinder first and second if maybe after kinder or after first, she's like good to go where she doesn't need straight up phonics instruction like that and waste my money because she's my youngest. So that's the only reason I didn't buy the whole like set of all the books. But I bought it on Amazon, and for the whole kindergarten level, it was $42. And on Hooked on Phonics, I think it's a little bit more than that. So I would just check both if you're planning on purchasing it, just to see which one, you know, you get the better price. And obviously, if you want to buy the whole kit, you can. But what comes in the kit is, I don't have the DVD in here, I don't think. No, it's probably in my office. But it comes with a DVD, and the DVD has like little mini lessons on it. I don't actually use the DVD. We've used it a little, and it teaches them like the new blend or the new word family they're learning. And I just found it easier to just teach it to her myself, rather than to get up and we gotta go put in the Xbox, you know, like I can't be bothered. But my laziness does not mean it's not a good DVD, because I've put it in there before and just let her watch it a little bit. So it's perfectly fine, and it's nice and helpful too, because it does teach them that, and it saves you a little bit of doing that work. But now that she's starting to get the blends pretty quickly, hasn't been really worth our time or the effort. But what I like about this program, though, is that it's so step-by-step and systematic. So it just has, I'll probably put some images on the screen when I'm editing this so that you can see it up close. But the book itself, it's broken down into units. This is part 1 of Kinder, level 3. And so it has 6 units. We've actually been going through this pretty quickly. We've gone through a unit a week. So this week we're in unit 5. And she is just reading now. And it's amazing. So in each unit, they learn a word family. So the first one was at. You know, they learn how to blend that, and they blend a bunch of consonants with it. So they learn the at words, and then it's hat, sat, and so they just practice. Here, I'll show you how it works. This isn't a Hooked on Phonics review. I do plan on doing one, but I figure this is what I use. I'll show you a little bit more. And so then they just blend, you know, practice reading those blends. And then they do a little more practice. So the lessons, you go at your own pace because you're doing them sitting with your child. And then after each lesson, there is a little story. What I love about these little stories, I mean, they're very simple, is that they only include words that they should be able to read. So, right, in this first story, they've only learned at words, right? And so they only use at words in the first story. So she could read after the first lesson this entire story. And so for a kid, that feels great, right? And so they add on and add on. So then each subsequent story includes words that they've learned in previous stories. They also teach high frequency words. They call them sight words in here. And so the sight words that they use are either words that can't be phonetically read, or they're words that are high frequency. They mix them together and call them the same thing. So, you know, in each unit, they learn a couple of sight words. Like in the first unit, they learned he and a. And in the next unit, they learned the and no. So that way, they're adding those to their vocabularies. And so the stories that they read are more complex. Also, each unit, there's a little book that they can read the entire book, because it only includes words, families, and sight words that they've learned. So we actually have made it pretty far through this. And my daughter is really, really learning, and it's great because she went from knowing some letter sounds to actually reading these entire books. And now when I read books to her that are not, you know, from this, like other books, she'll start recognizing words. And she's like, at, you know, the. So she's starting to see words in her environment and be able to read them in all kinds of contexts. So that's why I recommend doing a reading program. Now, just a few tips on when you're teaching your child to read, even with Hooked on Phonics. A couple of tips is when they're blending, because of course in the book it doesn't, you know, it says you're gonna blend them, and if on the DVD it does show them blending so the kids can learn. What I do with my daughter, I tell her to sing it, like, so she'll do the sound. So if she's reading the word hat and she goes, at, then when I tell her to put it together, then I'll say, don't forget, okay, go ahead and sing it, so that she actually strings them together. Because otherwise, kids have a hard time, at, saying it fast enough to actually get it to go together and make the word that they hear and that they realize what they're reading. So I'll tell her to sing it and she goes, hat, you know, and that works. And so then she'll put it together and hear the word. So I always say, okay, now sing the word, Rhea, and then that helps her to learn it. Another thing that I do is that I'm learning with my daughter that she'll just start guessing sometimes. Like if she's read a word that has one word family ending, she'll just guess the next word rather than actually read the sounds. And so a little joke that I have with her is that, gosh, Rhea, I'm teaching you the code. You're going to be able to read anything. I can't keep any secrets from you now. Now that you can read, you know all the code. And so she's like, yes, you know, you can't keep any secrets. And so the code, of course, are the letter sounds. And obviously that's actually a real term, decoding words. And so if she struggles or she starts guessing rather than actually reading the sounds, I'll say, Rhea, use your code. Use the code, Rhea. And that just turns her brain on to do it. But it doesn't feel like it's correcting her such that she gets discouraged, because she doesn't really like to be corrected very much, I have to say. A few other tips is that the Hooked on Phonics lessons, and I'm sure any reading lesson, they're not crazy long, but there is repetition in there, right? Where they read one row of words and another row of words. And my daughter, you know, she's kinder and it's October, so she's new to school, even though it's homeschool. You know, sometimes she'll just not feel like doing it anymore. I'll just be done. And so what we do, because I try to do a lesson each day, depending on how many. If there's only 2 in a unit, then we'll just do 2 that week and then do practice. But to get through the lesson, I don't want to push her such that she just doesn't want to do it. What we do is we break it up with books. So I'll let her grab a couple of books she wants me to read, or I'll grab a couple. You know, we have several books that we just have here in the house, and then we go to the library frequently to get new books. And so we'll have 2 or 3 books just ready to go. And so whenever we need a break, or after she reads a line, we might take a little break, and then I'll read her story. And then we're like, okay, let's read a little more, and then we need another break, I'll read her a story. So we kind of take turns, like she reads to me, and then I read to her. And that keeps her energized and excited. And not to mention, she likes the stories, so it continues to boost her wanting to learn how to read, because she wants to be able to read those stories on her own. So just a couple of tips that have little things that I've tried that have worked for me to keep her motivated during the lessons. All right, and so the last step I would say is to practice frequently. And what I mean is, like, before I start a new lesson with her, we practice. Sometimes it's the letter sounds, but now I only do that probably once or twice a week, where we just go through the flashcards for the sounds, because the ones that we're using, the short vowels and the consonants, she knows them really well and she's using them each day when she reads, so we don't necessarily have to go through those flashcards, just to cut down that time a bit. But one thing I have started doing is that each time she learns a word family in the Hooked on Phonics book, and of course you can do this with any reading program you're using, then I've started creating a poster, and I just write down a whole list of words with that family. And so the poster, we just add to it each lesson. And so each day before we start our new lesson, we review all of those word families. Now we're starting to get quite a few on there, so I'll probably have to be a little bit more selective, or maybe we'll just do 4 or 5 of them and just choose them at random, so that we're getting some practice, but it's not taking like 10 minutes. But we do, here, actually have them, and you'll see these because I'm adding a clip to the end of this video where I actually show you guys as I walk through the lesson with my daughter. So I just made this poster. I bought a white poster board for like 50 cents. Now you can find posters of sight words, of course. Companies will sell them to you. But I like this one because we're building it with what we know, right? Like, we learn a word family and then I just add to it. Eventually I'll probably have more than one of these. And so before we start, I just hold this up and we read it. Sometimes we turn it into a game. I'll pretend like someone is chasing us and they're gonna break through the wall and she's gotta read the words before they come in. I get as silly as I need to keep her excited and engaged because, well, she's 4. And then we do the same with the sight words. Once the sight words are introduced, we learn them, we practice them, and then each day before we start a new lesson, we read over all the sight words we've learned too. So that has been really helpful because, as you know, kids need repetition, they need that practice. And it's working because, like I said, she can read her stories, the Hooked on Phonics readers, And she can also read those words when she sees them in other contexts. You know, we have a sign above our kitchen table and she recognized the word the in it. And she's like, oh, look, it says the. Like, she gets really excited about that. All right, so that is what I'm doing to teach my daughter, my 4-year-old, how to read. And like I said, she has gone from reading nothing and just knowing some sounds to knowing all the short vowels and all the consonant sounds and a couple of digraphs, plus reading consonant, vowel, consonant words, several of them, and being able to read sentences and entire books and recognizing those words in a context. And of course, we're still going. So by the end of this school year, with the way we're pacing and hooked on phonics, if we continue with it, we'll probably finish up, I'm guessing we'll probably finish first grade as well at the rate that we're going. So I'm really excited to see the progress that she makes, and I'll probably do a follow-up at some point. Even though I had it on my notes, I completely forgot to mention the other way that we practice our reading is through a program called Reading Eggs, which we absolutely love. Here I am, I'm logged in as my daughter, and Reading Eggs actually is a bunch of different programs. And the great thing is they do all come together. It's an app that you can use on an Android or an iPad device or on the computer. She uses it mostly on an iPad. She actually uses it about 30 minutes a day. Rhea uses Reading Eggs, and she also uses Fast Phonics. Both of these teach phonics. They teach letter sounds, they teach words, they teach blending, word families. So she gets to review some of the stuff I've taught her. She gets to learn some kind of new things. And it's just fun and engaging practice for her. So this is also a big thing that we do to practice. It's an additional reading practice activity.
Ham.
Raspberries.
One of the things that we practice each day are the sight words. We only practice the sight words that we've been introduced to so far in the reading program that we're using, Hooked on Phonics. And so I just write them on this poster, little inexpensive poster board, and I just write them on and I fill them in when we learn new ones. All right, so now we're gonna read them. Come on, Ray.
It's pop out of nowhere.
Okay. All right. So let's read them. You ready?
Yes, ready. He, a, the, no, and he has, is, on. Is this thing on? On. She, what? What?
That's your Mindy voice?
It.
Use your code on that one.
This.
Good job. Okay, and so the sight words with the program that we're using with Hooked on Phonics, some of them are words that can't be phonetically sounded out, but some of them are just words that are have spelling patterns that she hasn't learned yet, and they're just high frequency words or words that can't be sounded out. All right, so next up, we're gonna practice the word families. Okay, so the word families work just like the sight words. I just add the word families as we practice them, as we learn them. I add them to this poster, and then each day before we get started on a new lesson, we practice all the word families we've already learned.
What's up, guys? This is my YouTube channel where I give you tips and tricks to make learning fun. Watch and learn.
All right.
Fat, cat. Fat.
Wait, what is that?
Fat, cat.
Let's keep going.
Bat, hat, gnat, rat, sat, that, sat.
All right, what about this one?
Up. We're on up, everybody. Up.
All right, go ahead, baby.
Cam. Cam.
We're right here.
Up. Cap. Gap. I like saying gap. Gap. Nap. Nap. Lap.
All right, so the next step in our lesson is to learn some new sounds or new word family, and we're using Hooked on Phonics. We're in the kindergarten, the first book of kindergarten. We did not do the pre-K version because she didn't really need that, so we started with kinder, and so now we're gonna do our lesson. So, you ready, girl? You got your focus hat on?
No.
Let me see your focus eyes. Put them on.
I lost them all.
Oh, I found an extra pair. There's your focus eyes. Put your thinking cap on.
I found this.
Awesome.
In my listening ears.
Awesome. All right, let's go. So let's look at our sounds that we're putting together today. You're getting so good at blending these, huh?
Yes.
All right, let's read. What is this?
E.
Mm-hmm. Put it together.
E. Igloo. Pig.
Mm-hmm.
E.
And what do we get?
Ip.
Ip. Awesome. Oh my gosh, girl, you're getting so good at this.
Sip.
Good.
Ip.
Mm-hmm.
Hip. Lip.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Lip.
Rip.
Mm-hmm.
Zip. Zip. Whip.
Wait, what is that?
Yip.
High five. Great job. All right, I'm going to show the camera really quick what this... Actually, I'll just do it in post and put a little image on there of what the page looks like. All right, so next up, we're going to read these lines of words. So all we have left is to read these lines of words in this little short story. And then you're done, baby. Okay?
With my reading lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then we'll read one of the books. And then I'll read you whatever book you want, okay?
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Ready?
Knock it out of there, girl.
It.
Wait, start here.
Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, everybody. Step up on our learning school. And this is where, now, this show is called Learning School.
Okay. Now show them how it's done, Ray.
Leslie's
Ray.
It's called Super School. And if you want to, there's also a YouTube channel about it. It's going to be funny, so.
All right, let's go.
Ip,
Wait, what's that?
hip,
Mm-hmm.
tip, zip, yip, dip, lip, zip, rip,
Now, can you read the whole title?
pip,
Kit.
kit, and pip.
All right, let's go.
This is Kit. Kit can sit. This is Pit.
Who?
Pip.
There you go.
Pip can whip.
What?
Whip.
Mm-mm. Oh.
Ah!
What's that letter? There you go.
Y.
Mm-hmm. What sound?
Yip.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yip. She can yip. She
Mhm.
means scream.
Does it? Oh, cool. That's right. All right, now we're going to read one of the books. Just one. One.
Cat.
That's the one you want to read?
Yes.
Okay.
Cat.
Okay.
Have dust.
All right, let's read cat.
Cat. Cat. By
Russell Gins.
Russell Gins and Amy Carr. Illustrated by Chef Phillip. That was fast.
Was it fast or was it just loud?
It's fast.
All right, read.
Cat. Cat can tap. He can tap a pan. He can tap a can. He can tap a can.
Mm-hmm.
He can tap a can. He can tap a fan. Tap, tap, tap. Cat can tap.
Good job, dear. High five.
Well, that was pretty fast.
Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If it has, the number one thing you can do to help me out would be to share this video with other people that you think would find it useful. The other thing you can do is like this video. That tells YouTube you found it helpful, so they'll share it with other people. And of course, if content like this, product reviews, homeschool videos, lessons, things like that are helpful for you, then go ahead and hit subscribe and subscribe to my channel. You'll be one of the early ones because I'm just getting started.